We really should be able to feel, have a right to feel all our emotions, including anger, and that they live in our body. Like for me as a high schooler, to get that was huge. I got known on campus, like people would come up to me and be like, I need to have some feelings. I heard this other person, you helped them cry. Like, can you help me cry? And we had to have a meeting, and the head of the psychology department turned to me and she goes, yeah, but emotions are dangerous.
Wow.
And I was like, what? People want this. Like my peers were open to it. It wasn't like we were like, that's so strange. Like people were hungry. Whatever we deem to be the problem was probably a solution to a different problem. It makes it easier to grab technique from different theories flexibly. It's just so much fun to see that moment of like excitement come, and to be part of it is really pleasurable. I'm always blown away by the commitment and courage and, just the hard work that my students put in. It's really lovely.
Hi, Tori Olds.
Hi.
I was just thinking, preparing for this, like how auspicious to know you. Because originally, I'm a really good networker, connector. Mm-hmm. Like that's how my brain works, my neurodivergent brain. And we were filming your brother-in-law, John Howard, with Diane Poheller. Gosh, was that 2015, 2016? And then I joined a marketing mastermind based in Austin. And I asked John, to stay with him. And he turned me on to your parents, the Sykes. Mm-hmm. And so me and another person from my company, we'd fly down there and we stayed at your room that you and your sister Charlotte lived. And I don't think it changed since you were 14. It was like this very, very girls' room. So I was like, and I think I stayed there like 3 or 4 times over a year. And I was like, who is Tori and Charlotte? Like, who are these people? Like I saw your dolls from probably you were 3 years old. So you were psychically in my brain, especially because I didn't know you. So I was like trying to imprint like a mystery game. And then one time I was flying down and Charlotte offered to pick me up, your sister, at the airport. And then we stopped at a coffee shop. And then she started showing me all these videos that you recorded that were brilliant.
Wow,
that you were just this natural teacher. And that was your native genius, was teaching. Wow. And I know you have a large clinic that you had, which we'll get into. Mm-hmm. So starting out, it seems like I'm new in like interviewing our presenters. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a lot of data, but it seems like there's two streaks of therapists. Either they're healing from their own childhood trauma. Yeah. Or they grew up in a family where therapists, like we just interviewed Ariel Schwartz yesterday. Oh, yeah. And she had a step parent and a parent that were both therapists.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to talk about your dinner table conversations with your parents and your sister, with Deb and Tudor.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And
you have brilliant, brilliant parents. I'm totally jealous.
I was thinking about that. A funny story is that my very first memory ever is when I was 3 years old and I was role-playing a couple for couples therapy. It was my very first memory. I remember really feeling like, this is so cool. I was sitting with my sister on the little ledge of our fireplace with my dad as the therapist. Seems like something he would set up. Yeah, I'm definitely in the second group. We're an unusual group.
Did you say your first word was PTSD?
I didn't say that, but it would be hysterical.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh boy. I've reflected on the difference it made having therapists as parents, but also ones who were analytically trained. And then my mom got into somatic work in the 90s, so earlier. But mainly just that they were passionate about, they were really into group therapy. They were passionate about the mind.
And should be mentioned, they were leaders in Texas.
Yeah. My mom my dad would travel around and do a lot of, like during the encounter group movement, he was, traveling every weekend and leading groups and stuff. What was nice about them being leaders and so interested in their training is we'd often have people come stay at our house who were really beautiful. There's a guy, Louis Ormond, who developed modern analytic group therapy. I remember having a big impact on me. When I asked him, I was pretty young, and I asked him, like, why did you become a group therapist? Maybe I was 12 or 10. I can't remember. And he spent a whole hour telling me this amazing story about his childhood as this Jewish kid studying group dynamics of the other kid. You know, it's like the adults around were so generous to be able to be willing to kind of transmit their passion and clarity. And I think it makes a big difference. I mean, this is something I wish every child had, and probably most of the kids of people watching this do have, because, you know, they have parents interested in therapy and psychology. But it's just like some acknowledgement that we have a mind. I think most of us grow up without that. It's like, it's very in the background, and then it's maybe behaviors, and we're saying do this or don't do that, maybe thoughts and opinions, but we almost barely speak the word mind, you know, like in terms of like, oh, there's an inner world, and you have like I learned about the unconscious mind very young. Like, I think just having a frame for that allowed me to then learn from life more deeply, you know, like, because then I could be like, okay, well, how's this? It gave me a whole other dimension to be paying attention to. And I think that was hugely, you know, meaningful and beneficial to me. And then especially once the body came into it in the 90s, so it kind of was first just analytic stuff. And, but in the 90s, my mom started studying with a woman named Yvonne Agazarian. Most people don't know her because her form of therapy didn't become as known. It was a form of group therapy called system-centered therapy. But it was a group therapy where really people are tracking what's happening in their body. And instead of talking about their week or even their childhood, they're just tracking what is happening inside me right now in this moment, and then sharing that with the group. So not just what I feel, but where I feel that in my body, what's happening, images, all right brain kind of stuff. And so learning, Yvonne would come to Austin frequently and became a grandmother figure to me. And that was, and she would I was just fascinated. I mean, I've always been kind of fascinated, like sitting around the dinner, you know, like listening to these guests. I was like, what is this group therapy thing? But Yvonne was this older British lady, very forceful personality, very brilliant. And getting that we really should be able to have a right to feel all our emotions, including anger.
Yeah.
And we can feel, and that they live in our body. Like for a high schooler, for me as a high schooler, to get that was huge.
Completely. How fortunate.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, if I was mad at my dad, I would make him sit down, put his feet on the floor, you know, and this is like 98 or something. And I was like, okay, sit centered, because that's what I had learned, you know. And then I would track like how I was feeling, like I'm feeling you hurt me when you said that, and I'm angry, and I'm feeling this energy in my fist, and I want to punch you. You know, like, I was like, are you present to witness that? You know, I was like sort of like being a rebellious teenager holding my parents to task, but like, are you fully aware of my feelings? You know, and it was, you know, it was so different, but great. And anyway, I'm talking a lot, so I'll pause there and see
I so love it. I could see as a dad hating you because you're so fucking sophisticated, and like, oh my God, she's right. Like,
I know they created a monster. They should never have opened my awareness to what was going on. Yeah.
Grasshopper, you've surpassed the teacher.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, right. Totally. It's so funny. And, you know, but then it became like, it's funny that you said with my dad particularly, because I think he's always been like happy just to kind of rest on his old learnings. He loves going to trainings, but he's fascinated by it. But he's like, I'm okay. Like, I just want to dream. Me and my clients should just dream each other, you know? Whereas my mom, I really learned from, but we need to get work done. Like, you know, let's really learn some techniques and be experiential and bottom up and focused. And so me and her have been sort of on a journey of training, like somatic experiencing and all the different, I mean, I can say different things I've been loved training in, but it's been fun to have her geek out with me.
You know, to me, what I was thinking about, Tori, is how much imprinting we could do to youth. Like we think they're, you know, children and not connected to their adult brain.
Yeah.
But if you look at like Asian traditions, like in the martial arts, they start when they're 4 years old.
Yeah.
In the Buddhist tradition, like the Dalai Lama, he's figured out, you know, they figure out who's the Dalai Lama. The next, and at 2 years old, he starts getting tutors.
Yeah.
All the way to like you have such a rich opportunity. So
Yeah.
Two things. I think people listening, like how much imprinting you could do with your children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rich Simon at one psychotherapy networker, his daughter spoke, and like, oh, I had a sibling. It was the Networker magazine, and all day, every dinner table we would talk about therapy, and just like how important it is to get mentorship. And then if you are a therapist, like how much you could imprint your children, even at a really early.
Yeah, that's right. And even I think the psychoeducation piece is wonderful, but even without that, just through modeling and showing like, oh, let's reflect, like, what was I thinking or feeling? My daughter made me so proud the other day when she was playing some kind of online role play kind of game where they're like all tigers or cats or something. And one of the other little girls was upset, and she goes up to her and she's like, "What's wrong?" She goes, "What's wrong? My mom's a therapist. I can help." She was maybe when she was like 8 or 9, and they're like,
well, Education, the British movie.
Totally, yeah. And she's like, well, and the other one's like, I'm just sad. I'm trying to feel happy. And my daughter wrote back, "Don't try to feel happy. That's going to make you feel worse. Just let me give you a hug." And so she like virtually gave her a hug instead. I was like, well, that's smart. I never told her that, but like, right. We have to lean into the negative feelings if we're going to feel better, And
it's trusting kids have wisdom on their own.
Yeah.
Like they see.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Maybe that's natural. I just didn't unlearn that. I didn't make her unlearn that through teaching her it's scary.
And I think schools don't really teach emotional intelligence, somatics.
Sadly, yeah.
At least in the U.S. I know,
like
in Scandinavian countries, there's a lot more consciousness.
God, there's so much we could do. I know we're moving in that direction, but it's exciting to think. I mean, I love the idea of like teaching teens and kids and everybody. I mean, when I was in college, I think I realized like, okay, there's some things that are benefiting me. And so I just wanted that I have, most people don't have. So I just wanted to like get the word out. And so I started, having people come train my friends at Middlebury, have teachers. One of the head SCT, this group therapy people came and presented, and Middlebury actually tried to block me from having them because they thought it was like new agey maybe, which I was doing new agey stuff too, but this wasn't actually. It was just group therapy with some top group people. But the head of we had to have a meeting, and the head of the psychology department turned to me and she goes, "Yeah, but emotions are dangerous."
Wow.
And I was like, what? So I was like aware as like, okay, we have our work set out to, set out here.
Emotions are dangerous, but suppressing emotions even more dangerous.
That's what I was thinking. Yes, exactly. Not knowing how any education on how to be with emotion is what's dangerous. I mean, I get what she was saying. You don't want a novice to come in just having people feel stuff. But this person was a highly trained therapist that was amazing. So we got her to the school when they found out it's actually the psychology department specifically that was trying to block it. And the school was like, why? And they just sided with me and we had it went through. But,
okay. So I could see your path either going, my parents are therapists. That's the least thing I want to do. Or my story is my dad was an insurance agent, voted for Nixon. And I was like, I read Death of a Salesman in high school and I just cried. Like, I'm not going to do that. And here I am in the therapy world, marketing. So tell me your story. Like, when did you decide to become a therapist?
I mean, I think I always knew I wanted to do something in this. Yeah. I mean, even in 8th grade, I was leading little groups. I mean, not officially, but just in my bedroom, at slumber parties, I'd have like 8 girls over or something. And we'd sit in a circle, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but looking back, I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. Like it was just very to the point. Like we just went around and said the hardest thing that was happening to us. So we said, what's the hardest thing in your life? And we just go around, and then the person would talk about it and maybe cry. And then when they were done sharing, we'd either all give them a hug or we'd go around and say something nice about them that we appreciated. And that was it. But it was amazing how people loved that. Like my friends liked that. And we'd even get the guys in sometimes or whatever. So I think actually that experience really showed me like, okay, people want this. Like my peers were open to it. It wasn't like we were like, that's so strange. Like people were hungry. And so I think that's why in college, as I started getting stuff more out there, I was like, oh my God, people were like coming up to me. This is a little bit of an aside because I also started a sort of an energy healing program when I was through college Sufi mystical stuff. And so I was going through this program where you learn how to do these sessions that are like more spiritual. So, but also psychological, obviously, was very much getting people in touch with their heart and emotions, and then chanting and stuff. But so I had to, for that program, be doing sessions out of my dorm room. So, but I got known on campus, like people would come up to me and be like, I need to have some feelings. I heard this other person, you helped them cry. Like, can you help me cry? And and this is people I didn't even know. And I was like, okay. I remember this one time, this really sexy, kind of cool, like he's like the DJ on campus kind of guy, real tall, just, he was from New York, and he was like a DJ in Manhattan, and so, anyway. And him coming up and was like, yeah, I heard my friend said that you helped her cry. Can we do that? And I was like, well, I do have finals coming up. I mean, I'm a little busy. And he was like, yeah, but I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know how to do New York accent. He's like, I'm kind of like this about it. like snapping, kind of like this about, I was like, oh my God, people really want to feel. So anyway, so that's how I started teaching, really. And of course I love being a student. So that was my primary thing after getting out of grad school, I got my PhD or whatever, but was just loving doing trainings. I love being a student. I love learning, and then trying to integrate it. And yeah.
I just had the image when you're doing group therapy in your house as a little kid, and your parents listening outside, high-fiving each other. Like,
yeah. I wonder if I told them. I don't remember if I told them that. I probably did. Yes. Good job. We've done our work here. Yeah. Yeah.
So where'd you get your master's?
I got my PhD at Texas, at A&M. Yeah, so in Texas.
And then, did you join your parents' agency, or what should we call it?
So they didn't have a practice yet. It was like back in the early in the 2000s. It was just more, it wasn't really common then to have like group practices. You just kind of like had your private practice. But they did have a building, which I had kind of grown up around. It's still there. So my sister's probably there seeing clients right now. It was on Deep Eddy Street. So that's why we ended up creating Deep Eddy Psychotherapy. But my sister went first. We're very close. She was 3 years older than me. And she's just a little bit more of an entrepreneur than I am. She has that. She's a great mindset. Yeah, she's a great therapist, but she does not geek out on theory, for instance. Like I like geeking out, learning all the theory. That's not her personality. She's like, I know what I do. I just help my clients feel their feelings. And, but she really has a good head for business, and like, she's very extroverted, whereas I'm introverted. So she wanted to like get people around us and build our family, build it from what we had. And, so she really stepped in. She did more with that. My husband, and her together started it, and now she's just the one kind of helping run it. But that center just started real small, and then just kind of grew and grew. Now we have like 250 therapists. But a number of years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of stepped out. My husband and I did officially sort of step out because we're not good at business, and we work there now, but we're not like running it or anything. And we've been doing our own different projects.
And what was it like it sounds like you probably had the easiest transition to developing your clinical practice, since you've been doing it since you were in diapers.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. Yes, that's true. And it's amazing how I was thinking about this the other day, how anxious we can get about, like, now things that just don't strike me as anxiety producing. Like I was imagining being in my internship again, and I remember feeling like this anxiety. So I can't imagine what most people feel that didn't grow up with it. Like, because I was like trying to be so good. And, my dad gave me really good advice when I started supervising postdocs, people that just got their degree. He was like, your main job, maybe your only job, is to help them feel less anxious. And I think that was really good advice. So yes, it's even with me, it was like this like journey of like finding myself, being able to be comfortable in myself. And, but it amazes me how my students do it so beautifully and gracefully. And I love being there to support them. But I'm like, I had an easy path and it was still hard, like,
Yeah.
it's amazing what the courage, I'm always blown away by the commitment and courage and, just the hard work that my students put in, it's really lovely.
And I'd be curious who your early mentors and teachers were that shaped you.
Yeah. So certainly, when I was very young, I had sort of these two poles. One was Yvonne, and one was more of and then I had some spiritual teachers. But when I came out of grad school, I first started learning something called AEDP, not primarily from Diana Fosha, although I did have chances to get, her to see my work and stuff. But that was a great landing point because it was so similar to the kind of therapy my mom did. Basically, it was very motion focused and body centered. But then I found Stan Tatkin. And even though I'm not really into couples work, I think it was nice. Like it was just when he was taking off. And so like in our first training group, there's only 4 of us. He would come to Austin. It was just like a small group. And so I could just like pick his brain and get to know him really well and become friends. And so I ended up training with him pretty intensively for 3 years, even though he had actually just then was starting to start his institute. He had asked me if I would maybe be one of his first core faculty, that very first faculty.
That was the PACT Institute.
The PACT Institute. But it was just right when I was about to have my first baby and it was going to be hard to travel. And then also like, I love learning with Stan. I love couples. But I really love individual work. So I was like, oh, it's not quite a fit. Like, although I did just have Tracy, his wife, in a training group I was doing this summer, she's just now becoming a therapist. Is really hopefully.
Oh, that's
but yeah, they're such a sweet couple. So Stan, I learned a lot from Stan, even though but mostly just his confidence and in his body and just being able to flow with things and be creative, and of course, help me understand more about attachment theory and stuff like that. And then I think after that, I did the somatic experiencing training. Which was wonderful. But then I ended up discovering, I think it was through Jules, because she's a good friend of mine, Julianne Taylor-Shore. She was mentioning, memory reconsolidation, and that was some 6 or 7 years ago, maybe. And so I found Bruce Ecker, and he has really been my mentor for, really just the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But pretty, like, I've never had a mentor like that where I'm like, because we actually co-lead 2 different groups together. And so I have 2 chances to see him, for like 2 hours each month. And so that's been wonderful. Deep dive into something called coherence therapy, which rarely people have heard. It's less common that people have heard of coherence therapy. They maybe have heard of Bruce through his work with memory reconsolidation. And he has a brilliant book called Unlocking the Emotional Brain that is, I think, one of the most important books for people to read if they want to understand like therapeutic breakthroughs, what the science of that is. And I think he's kind of helping our field because he is presenting sort of a unified field theory. It was just funny because he was a physicist first, but this unified theory that can really apply equally well to any experiential form of therapy. Or any therapy it's amazing. Yeah.
Quantum therapy.
Yeah, right. It's like he's brilliant. And I've never seen anyone track the unconscious mind as like precisely as he does. So we do a lot of demos. I just saw him do a demo 2 days ago. And so it's just nice to just constantly be learning from him how to track how the unconscious mind works. He calls them schemas. You could call them mental models or unconscious beliefs, but just to see, or predictions, even if you want to use a brain science term, but just to kind of slow down and track like, okay, so we see this at the top. Like, how did you get there? Like, why was this necessary? What knowing was that based on? And then, well, what's that based on? And I've loved, so I feel very close to Bruce. I feel like, it's been really nice to feel like, oh my gosh, here's someone I can really ask anything, and he's so brilliant that he probably will have an answer. And he's so patient and he's really humble, which I think is wonderful. Like he doesn't come across with a lot of ego. And it's helped me also because I've also trained in IFS. It really has helped me deepen my IFS work. So I do coherence therapy, but when I can marry it with IFS and slow down and really understand what like through parts work, but really getting the coherence. In other words, like, why does this make sense? Why are you doing what you're doing? It deepens it a lot. So that's kind of where I am today, is like just using Bruce's kind of like science and what he's taught me in terms of how to listen and think about theory to have some kind of more of a map for integrating between all these different experiential therapies that I love.
Yeah, that was my next question. It's like, you have a unique way of weaving together different modalities. So,
yeah.
So I wonder what your process is for integration.
I mean, or at least, let's see. Yes. At the very least, what I've done over the years is create sort of my own like diagrams or visuals that kind of summarize, look, here are the key things that all of these therapies are doing. Okay. And this is how this one accomplishes it. And this is how this one accomplishes it. But if we can see that they're doing the same thing in just different ways, it allows us to be more integrative, because we can say, okay, here's a moment where I need, I don't know, to make more contact with to get out of the head and make more contact with the unconscious. Okay. Do that through parts work. I could do that through somatic tracking. I could, I need to bring more resource on, like, here's a number of ways I could do that. So if you kind of have a little bit more of a umbrella, or just like a way of looking at the whole thing, it makes it easier to grab technique from different theories flexibly, I guess. And then there's a whole other conversation of like how to set up a moment for memory reconsolidation to occur, which is the deep unlearning of old stuff. And each theory has its own way of doing that. Yeah. But I do think that because Bruce is the only one that has been all along really conscious of trying to do that, he's really kind of shown me like, okay, how to make that really explicit, so that now when I go back to my AEDP work, I'm like, great, do all the AEDP steps and just add this little part, or do all the IFS part and just add this moment, So we also are kind of like tweaking. It's like a conversation between my students and I of like how to like use what's there, but just like even enhance it more, which is fun. And
just a plug, you mentioned Jules. We have a great course where she does memory reconsolidation.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. She's amazing. Yeah. I think it's becoming more of a topic. I mean, I think thanks partly to Jules, and then I've been trying to get the word out. And so I think now people are starting to like talk about it more. And the others, obviously, like Bruce, I mean, he's a major figure in getting people to talk about memory reconsolidation. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder for somebody who just graduated, got their master's or PhD, and they want additional training, where would you send them? And obviously everybody has their own different personalities, their own, they might want to work with depression or couples or anxiety.
Yes. I mean, I might try to entice them to come work with me, come train with me. I love training people who are new to either therapy or experiential therapy. Maybe they've had lots of experience. And I think it's partly because what I like to offer is a little bit of smorgasbord. Like, okay, so here are the basic things that they're all talking about. And let me make it a little simpler. Like, let's summarize what are the core things and show examples and make it really, and then here are what are beautiful about, it's like a survey course in college, like, and here's some beautiful different models. And then like giving my students a moment to say, okay, which one appeals to you? And we have ways of kind of like talking, like, are you a little bit more of a scientist? And then you might do like coherence therapy. Or are you sort of like a midwife? And then you might do like more AEDP, we kind of like try to feel like, who am I as a therapist, and which would be a good model to really learn well. So I really like actually catching people in that moment and being like, okay.
Really early on.
Yeah. Here's a safe place to land. Like I have a 6-month training called Minding the Heart where I do that. So I think that's fun, but I love all of the training. That's why I like to talk to people about which one are you? What kind of archetype are you almost? For people who are very much like precision, maybe are a little bit more left brain, really like to get like curious about what is under that. I do think coherence therapy is beautiful. It's just kind of hard to learn. But one thing that's nice about IFS, I have to say, is that it kind of incorporates both. Like it's both very kind of has a touchy-feely part to it more than coherence therapy does. It's imagistic and it's like tender, and yet it tracks some of the coherence. It also has a lot of insight. So sometimes I just recommend, that's a nice place to start. But
Is there one principle that guides you no matter what approach you're using? Besides, you said earlier,
coherence. So yeah. So something. This was interesting. Something I remember. This has been my sort of core, I don't know, spiritual core principle or guiding light, and it's something I realized, I think, pretty young, because I remember the moment I realized it, which is that we're all doing our best.
Yeah.
And I think having that somehow enter my system and kind of early was so, I don't know, it's like it takes a lot of the tension out of life if I'm not worrying about who to judge, myself or others. It's like, okay, like just stay curious. Like, why are you doing that? Why am I doing that? And so I think that's one thing.
I think it's such an energy drain. I'm really good at it.
Exhausting.
Jesus, so many brain calories.
And it doesn't actually end up benefiting anybody. It's fascinating. Like we think if we push people to realize they're wrong and change, but actually that doesn't really create change. It just creates resistance anyway.
Completely.
Yeah. And that's one thing I really love about Bruce. He's really strong in that message. He talks about there's counteractive ways of doing therapy, which are just try to do the opposite of the symptom. Counteract the symptom. Like if you're anxious, calm down. If you're angry, learn anger management tools, like just practice setting the boundary and all these things, And then it's not a very romantic term, non-counteractive, but we can actually do an IFS, they would say more non-agenda, but we can actually instead just say, get curious about what's underneath that. Like, how does it actually make sense? That's the word. That's what coherence means. So sometimes I'll teach that to my students because it's just a lovely word.
I think an economy would be like, what's the intelligence of that?
What is the intelligence of that? Exactly. Why does that instead of saying what's irrational about that and try to convince it it's irrational, really listening for why does it make sense? I remember when I was just starting out as a psychologist, my dad said, if there's one thing for you to remember, it's that people think they're coming to you with their problems, but they're actually coming to you with their solutions.
Say more.
Okay. So whatever we deem to be the problem, whether it's drinking or numbing out emotionally or getting depressed, was probably a solution to a different problem. In other words, I drink in order to not feel ashamed, or like the thing that we're saying, oh, this is a real problematic pattern that I have, is probably a solution unconsciously to something that our system, what Bruce would say is the worst suffering. He talks about the two sufferings. Like, yes, we might suffer from drinking, but unconsciously we believe we'll suffer even more if we stop drinking, or else we would do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like our brain's always kind of in a way logical. I mean, it's not logical neocortex logic. It's more subcortical logic, but it has its own logic. Like it is always trying to do what's right for us. So even things that seem sort of like self-defeating or against what we're consciously intending to do, it's because our brain actually thinks we better do this other thing. If we don't, we're going to run into a suffering. That is, I even though people don't necessarily need to learn coherence therapy, I like borrowing the term coherence for that. I think that's just a general term that should be out there more in our field, that our mind is coherent, and however you're getting there, whatever modality, look, like you said, Hakomi, looking for the coherence of the symptom, the issue, I think is a huge, it just really aligned. I guess in IFS, they would talk about like no bad parts. It's a similar idea. That's why I like IFS also a lot. So anyway, when I found you can tell which, so I had kind of two things, like emotions are good and no bad parts. I didn't have that word yet in my head when I was kind of coming into myself. And so it makes sense, like, IFS and PACT and, somatic experiencing and all these therapies that are very much bottom up, like, let's not just try to change you, but let's discover you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have such a curiosity, like back to what you said in the beginning about mind,
Yeah.
And I wonder, what do you love most about working with therapists as learners? Like, that mind model so much of it's all like discovering, being an auto mechanic, like what's this mind doing? Why is it doing it? Why are these emotions?
It is endlessly fascinating and also just powerful. So to find, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this, to find your fellow people who are as passionate about that. So I love colleagues too, but students, it's so great because they come so hungry. Like, I'm like, yes, and I can help. It feels very gratifying. Like we do make sense. And there are lots of wonderful models, even if you didn't learn them in grad school. Like, I feel like I'm like, you know how Christians talk about like sharing the good news or something, you know, like spreading like missionary, you know, kind of thing. Like, I feel like in some ways I'm like, oh my gosh, if you haven't heard, there's great news for you. There's amazing models and they're so fun to work with, and they're potentiate this amazing transformations, and they're probably aligned with your values more, you know, because a lot of people are like, I don't want to just tell people what to do, you know. And so I just love, it's just really enjoyable, just on maybe that's almost a more selfish thing in a way. It's just so much fun to see that moment of like excitement come, you know, and to be part of it is really pleasurable.
If you could give one piece of advice for a brand new therapist, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, gosh, how do I say it in one? I mean,
I'll give you 2.
I could do 2 points. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say in a sentence, but like, I feel like what most people come in with kind of consciously or unconsciously wanting is like the more romantic version of this, where like, this is actually a path. It's like a life journey, not just a job. But then grad school can kind of train us out of that, you know, and then we feel like more mechanics suddenly again. And it's like, oh God. So it's to tell them like, look, no, it really can be that other way that your heart probably was wanting, you know, where it's a journey and it's transformative and it's beautiful and it's challenging and meaningful and will help you to heal. If you take it as like part of the work is I'm going to work on my own healing. Then it's like, go for the people, like put yourself around the people who support that, because there are tons of people out there actually, even if there are sadly a lot of people, even who have been therapists for years, who don't even know about this whole movement, like that therapy wisdom represents, like all those people you know about. Sometimes it boggles my mind because I'm so into this kind of community, but there are other therapists out there who never have heard of this kind of stuff, you know? So people just coming out of grad school, I'd be like, look, come over here, like find these people, take courses like, you know, places like Academy of Therapy Wisdom, or with Jules or Somatic Experiencing or AEDP or like whatever, like learn about it and find a place that you can be like your therapy home and build community around that, you know. It can be a beautiful journey. Yeah.
I love what you're saying about like to remember why you got into it, and after grad school, coming back to that, like not losing that. And some grad schools really support it. Some grad schools probably take you out of it.
Yeah.
But back to your purpose, your longing.
Yeah. Find the mentors. Basically find mentors and community that will support that. Mm-hmm.
Besides plugging Therapy Wisdom, which I appreciate, you did a great job. How do people find mentors?
You know, that's interesting. It was so much easier for me because I was plugged in, and
because they came to your house.
They came to my house. So unfair. But you know, I do think once you get into this world, they're all over the place. Like, you just start talking to other people at these trainings. Like, what training are you going to? You can't forget, like, there's a lot. It's just getting in. Once you get in, you can talk to people. And I mean, I have a Discord channel if anyone's interested also, where we talk about like just today, someone's like, I was doing this training. I'm studying here. Like, so just finding something like that. And it could be again through Therapy Wisdom or wherever, but just finding some space, where people are like recommending like, oh my gosh, I met this person or that person or did a training, because there's some great mentors out there. Yeah.
We have both recorded courses, which is great. Like all of a sudden next week you have a certain client and you need information. You could just go online. And then there's something, and I also really love live programs. I ran a retreat center with 120 live programs a year that you could ask questions. And then I come from like, there is some transference. Like when you see a brilliant teacher that resonates with you, somehow you're with a client or imagine, and you're like, I know what Janina would say. Or
totally. It's like they're in your system. Yeah, it's amazing. In fact,
Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich, which was like a classic in 1920s, maybe even earlier, about your mind. Like, how do you create prosperity? In entrepreneur circles, he's like the hero. He's like Dave Linking. But he had a mastermind in his brain of like Rockefeller, like all the geniuses. And he would consult with them. He'd have internal board meetings.
That's awesome.
I mean, you could have Bruce, you could have Freud.
Totally. And what's so cool now is I feel like we're just leaning into technology for using like the good uses of technology, you know, and I think that's fascinating to be able to just like, oh, we can actually stay in contact and have little, like someone just this week was like, can we have a breakout group for like OCD and IFS, you know, because we want to explore that. And then the more people like, yes, I'm into that. And then they could just like, and I just think that's like my favorite use of technology, even though I am actually, my current project is, the last 6 years, my husband has been like working full time with all these programmers. Like, I know AI is like scary, but it's like the good AI use of like using AI to like match therapist and client. To like predict like which relationship would be the most healing. And so we're hopefully soon going to be starting like a big therapy directory where we use this and like try to help people find experiential therapists.
I know somebody does that for getting an assistant.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I think AI is really great when it's like helping human relationships, you know, instead of getting in the way of human relationships, it's like supporting them. Like, oh, you should meet each other, you know, kind of.
Yeah. You have 100 data points here, 100 here.
Because it's better. Yeah, I can't do I mean, my pain point on that was that I get emails every day from people looking for a therapist. And I actually try to help them usually, which is insane. But I don't know who has openings or like, so that's why I was like, I need some like technology help with this, like finding the person that could actually work with them, you know? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that just sounds so valuable because people are looking and don't know where to go. And
yeah.
If you had to sum up your approach to therapy in just a few words, what would those words be? Because you've covered so much ground. So
yeah, I feel like I love helping. What's so foundational, not just like I love doing it, but these models that I love, why I love them is that they help with this, is giving people access to their inner world where they're going to have an empowering experience of that. Like they can be effective when they can make order from the seeming chaos and can undo their own aloneness and understand things in a new way. So I love any approach that helps people slow down, creates a safety, but also gives tools or some kind of prompts that allow inner kind of focusing, to bring in Eugene Genlin's word there, like just allow inner awareness. I think that's amazing. Just like that in and of itself is amazing.
And last topic, we haven't talked about spirituality. I know that's such a big part of your life, and wonder how you integrate that with your practice.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I had psychology, but then I went like very strong spiritual. And then even before, like in my early 20s, before I was like doing somatic experiencing and all these other AEDP and all those other trainings, I was doing the mystical stuff. But it taught me so much, like, exactly the thing I was just talking about of the inner world. And I think that was partly because the form of meditation I was doing, because it was kind of Sufi based, was like going into the heart. It wasn't just like clear your mind and, you know, all that. It was like really feel what's going on in your heart, like meet those places inside that have a fear or something. And then you're like connecting to like God or the universe kind of, you know. And so it was kind of very attachment-y type meditation. So it just taught me like, okay, it made it really safe for me to go in, and I would love doing that for like hours, you know, like, gosh, there's so much it gave that was amazing and beautiful, but, it gave me like the practice foundation, like from the bottom up of like really knowing what it feels like to go inside. Cause I could like really practice that over time. And so now I think it's mostly comes in through my bones, like through just like that being implicit in me. But if someone has a spiritual practice or a spiritual leaning, it can be very beautiful for both helping create that inner awareness. And then when we hit upon one of those things, we're talking about the schema or the belief, it can be a really beautiful source of what neuroscientists would call like disconfirmation or mismatch, which is the thing that unlocks this like neuroplasticity called memory reconsolidation. It can be a beautiful source of like new updated information that can come in to actually create the unlocking of the brain. So I think it can be used on all points of the journey.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I could see how it really helps you hold space for your clients, like having that
Oh gosh.
inner heart, like
Yeah.
like you probably don't have to say very much. Like they can feel that.
Yeah.
That you offer. Like
Yeah. It's such a big part. It's such a huge part of being a therapist. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're awesome.
Oh, you too. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate chatting with you.
It's so good to get, we've known each other.
Yeah, to get the whole story.
But to get more of a story, like hanging around the dinner table.
Yeah. It's really fun.
I love what you're doing. And if we could support you,
thanks.
Let's figure out something.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Because you were part of Therapy Wisdom in the really early days. Like you trusted us and helped us. And,
yeah. I remember spitballing names out, and I'm so glad y'all went with the name that you got and not any of the names that I thought of, because I love Therapy Wisdom, or Academy of Therapy Wisdom. What a great title. Great name.
and a plug for Tori has a course on deliberate practice, which you turned me onto it, which is so important. I'll let Tori say more for closing, but it's like, here's the most relational field, and there's no feedback mechanism. Yeah. It's like you could be a kindergarten teacher for 40 years, but you might be horrible because there's no feedback mechanism except for maybe kids throwing spitballs at you. But
at least kids are honest, but clients will. Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to say something closing, just show off.
Brian was mentioning one of y'all's first courses, actually was one I did years ago, that is just about the foundational skills, but then adding sort of not just intellectually talking about them, but trying to practice them a bit. And if people don't know the deliberate practice, I actually have a YouTube channel, by the way, too, that. But on my YouTube channel is I do have one on deliberate practice and psychotherapy. But that's my buddies, Alexander Vosch, Tomira Zmanir, are great at the research they're doing and the training they're doing.
Are they at University of Washington, Seattle?
No, they started their own program called Sentio University, that is maybe doing the best therapy training I've ever seen. So if anyone ever wants to become a therapist and lives in California, Sentio, I try to promote them because they're two master therapists themselves, and they train sort of an experiential way model, but using deliberate practice because they're the two main researchers on it as well, and they're brilliant. Anyway.
And just to be clear, deliberate practice is non-denomination.
Deliberate practice is not for just therapy. It's a way of just improving skill through practicing improving like music or sports through practicing one skill at a time. And in psychology, we just haven't had that yet. It's like, it seems so obvious once you see it, but it's really not part of our training. And there's been a big movement, and APA is like cranking out books on this now, saying, oh yeah, we need to like break down our work into skills that are actually teachable, and then teach them and practice them and get feedback and improve and all those things. And so that's a big push in our field right now.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, so good to be with you, Ryan.
Lovely having you.
It was a pleasure.